We have a few questions which have come through. Following on your point you made about senior management being in the frame, if there aren't appropriate systems and controls in place, but then possibly offloading that, if you like, abrogating that responsibility or putting it down to a lower manager, someone less senior to them. You're saying that wouldn't be clearly the government's intention or hope, but strictly as the bill is written, could you see that that is a get-out?
It does appear at the moment to be a get-out because it's there and it's listed there, and I think, but I think that the reason for that is to ensure that in circumstances where you have smaller businesses and where it must be the case that although the business has bought in good policies, that quite clearly senior management must be involved in the actual decisions to do business with certain people, that they can't rely on the defence. I think where we talk about levels of responsibility within larger organisations, it's slightly different because a larger organisation should have the checks and balances in place, and it shouldn't, and it would be unusual, I think, to have, for example, in a firm like Aon, responsibility to be with a minion, someone lower down the chain. It would seem highly unfair. And I wonder whether there would be an argument by the Crown in due course that they still couldn't rely on the defence because senior management deliberately placed someone of a placed someone in the firing line potentially. So they were therefore negligent in senior management were negligent in what they were doing and what they were trying to achieve in the implementation of the policy by having someone at that level responsible for it. But who knows, because I mean, obviously it's not enacted yet, and we'll have to see what cases come before the courts and who argues what in due course.
There's an interesting point there, I think, in the context, thinking back on the sort of money laundering issue, where money laundering reporting officers had a complaint in a number of institutions that they weren't getting support from their senior management. And eventually the FSA heard this, and I think they changed the rule book, which meant that a senior manager then had to take responsibility, had it hardwired into their requirements that a senior manager should take overall responsibility for financial crime prevention. So presumably within financial institutions, at least, if not other corporates and other bodies covered, then it would be very difficult for senior management, not necessarily at board level, of course. It doesn't specify that the senior manager responsible for financial crime has to be at board level, but at least a more senior manager should take the rap if they hadn't put something in place.
Yeah, I think also as compliance and fraud lawyers, we would be negligent if we advised our clients to place responsibility on someone who wasn't a senior manager, because quite clearly these sort of issues are very, very important for the organisation. And any investigation, whether it ends up in an administrative action or criminal proceedings or both, is so fundamentally important to the business that you couldn't possibly advise them to do so. You just have to think about the sort of headlines that can come out of a corruption investigation, the sort of levels of cost to a business, even in share price falls and other aspects, that any headline saying arrests of people from an organisation can create. So you would have to, I think, say going forward, take into account not just the bribery bill, but Wolf recommendations and the OECD Convention on Corporate Governance, to say that any policy in place should be set by the management. I mean, they should be leading by example and making sure that they have very robust systems in place.
That makes
it then prevents there being any allegations that there is negligence by senior management. It would mean that these would be incidents that are rare, and when they occur are discovered quickly, dealt with quickly, and they can then avail themselves of the defence within the bribery bill.